Hey fellow netizens, Plus here. Do you want to commit war crimes? Do you want to be surrounded by cat girls? Do you want to let your employees work until they die from exhaustion? And best of all, get away with all of that. You can fully experience all of that in the tower defense strategy game Arknights.
Arknights.
It is about time to have a measured game review made by someone totally unbiased, and why you should play Arknights now. And I mean it with 100%, with 1000%. Now get ready to witness how war crimes are performed and how strategic masterminds are not born but made. But before all of that, let's go back to the very beginning of the game, shall we? Oh, you are finally awake. You wake up from a deep slumber. You don't know where you are or who you are. All you know is that this donkey girl wants you to lead your company out of here. Apparently, you used to be the doctor and the strategic mastermind of this pharmaceutical company called Rhode Island. Why a pharmaceutical company, you ask? Because in the world of terror, there exists a disease, rock cancer called 𝘎𝙁𝙄𝙈, caused by the mineral originium. 𝘎𝙁𝙁 is inoperable, but that's not the worst thing. The worst thing being an infected is the discrimination. Infected are hated by everyone. As an infected, you will be fired by your boss, get bullied at school, your family will disown you, and the government will make you disappear. Rhode Island, on the other hand, treats the infected like a normal human being. Then there's the opposite of your faction, Reunion. A bunch of infected thugs and some really hot waifu materials convinced by their more violent ideals and would fight anyone against the infected to the death. Your first mission: get the fuck out of the city, because this place will soon be turned upside down by the Reunion movement. Let's start with the gameplay. It's very simple. There's a red box and a blue box. Enemies appear in the red box and will try to enter the blue box. You have to stop them from doing that by killing each and every one of those homeless people. There are two different damage types, physical damage and art damage. Defense stats reduce physical damage, while resistance reduces art damage. You may think that this sounds very easy, but trust me, it gets really complex real fast. Sometimes the red boxes become quadrillions, and the same goes to the blue boxes too. But don't worry, there are many ways to cleanse your enemies other than beating them to death. You can push them or pull them into a hole. You can suffocate your enemies underwater, freeze them and let them slide into oblivion, crush under a pillar, or simply borrow the enemy's tactical nukes to your advantage. There are countless gimmicks to kill your enemies, and with each update we get to experience new ways to commit genocide. But before we can have fun with all of that, we need to understand the basics. There are a total of 8 classes in this game. Vanguards, the backbone of your early game. They print deployment points in one way or another. Deployment points are needed to deploy operators. Some of them provide lane holding as well. Others just focus on the printing and don't give a fuck about anything else. And then we got agents. They print DP like crazy, do good damage, and can be redeployed at a different position really fast. Tacticians are always with their pet. Guards, the most important role. There are many guard branches in this game. Dreadnoughts are unga bunga big stats. When you see an operator with a saw, a chainsaw, or an axe saw, that is very likely an AoE guard. They block more enemies and do damage to all blocked enemies at once. Ranged guards, aka lords, deal more damage when performing ranged attacks. They are pretty busted, all of them. Art guards. Most people only know one art guard, and this has become a meme of its own in the community. Instructors are made to support your frontline, but sometimes they are also made to watch over your slave. Fighters are inspired by JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Swordmaster have dyscalculia. Basically, when we count 1, they count 2 instead, which results in them always attacking twice instead of once. I call this the efficient corporate exploitation of employees with disabilities. Playing a Musha makes you feel like a weep. Liberator does absolutely nothing.
Activate when I skill. Activate when I skill. Activate when I skill.
Reaper is my favorite guard class, not because of their in-game performance, which is also great. It is because of my taste. And Crusher is absolutely garbage. Even the game devs say that. Wow, that was a lot of guards, wasn't it? Well, people used to call Arknights Guardknights for a reason. Defenders. The tanks of your squad. They are mostly very straightforward. All of them block more enemies than other classes, except for Duelist. Protector, one-dimensional tank. Art Protector, one-dimensional art tank. Sentinel Protectors have a long-range attack and profit from being hit. Guardian Defenders tank and heal your operators. Duelist Defenders are an absolute 1v1 machine. Juggernaut is the best defender branch ever. They provide your squad with the most consistent lane holding, massive damage, stun, and the most satisfying ASMR you can find in our medical department. Last, we have Fortress Defender. They are not defenders, they are just a bunch of operators with refugee status under the defender class because no other class wants them, and here's why. They have an absurdly long range and do massive AoE damage. Does this sound like a defender to you? No? Well, to me neither. Let's move on. Sniper, the physical damage dealer in your squad. Marksman has a higher DPS than me in bed. Artilleryman Sniper does AoE damage and has a bigger range, but at the cost of a slower attack speed. They are either the dead serious type or the crazy terrorist. There is no in between. Deadeye, just like the name suggests, have insanely long range, even infinite range sometimes. You can place them facing a wall and they will still hit the enemy. Heavy shooters are the total opposite. They have a short range, but they do very high damage. Spread shooter, aka Chalter, does Chalter things, which is very balanced. If you are new to Arknights, then keep in mind that blue women are absolutely game-breaking. Besieger Sniper branch are made of a simp, a member of the royal family, a mercenary, and a racist. I only used the racist. Flinger Sniper is not a sniper. Actually, they are a mixed breed of artillerymen and Deadeye snipers. They cannot hit air units, however, they have great ways to perform crowd control, like throwing a refrigerator at the enemy. When you face a tanky enemy, all you need is an operator who deals art damage. And that is the job of a caster. Single target casters can target and attack one enemy at a time, but they also try as hard as they can to break that rule. Splash caster are honestly just AoE damage dealer with shorter range and higher DP cost. I can't think of a fitting joke because I barely use them. Ifrit is technically a splash caster as well, but she has a straight line as her range. Chaincaster is my favorite caster branch. Their attack jump from enemy to enemy while slowing them down. This guy's third skill makes me feel like
a god in human clothing! Lightning bolts shoot from my fingertips!
Mech Accord casters have the weirdest code names. We have Click, who is an actual content creator, and Rock. Seriously, who the fuck calls themselves Rock? But nonetheless, it is a very good branch. They can hit the enemy non-stop, even when they are out of their range. Phalanx does absolutely nothing. Mystic Caster is the ultimate boss killer in this game. Up until now, I forgot to tell you that the enemies can actually deal damage to your operators. Yes, that is not your average tower defense, where you set up your towers and just watch them massacre balloons. You are putting your employees at risk of being brutally beaten or eaten. To prevent most of that from happening, we need to talk about the next class, Medics. They are pretty straightforward. They heal your operators, and some can even heal multiple targets at once. Therapists have a wider range than most other medics and can undo freeze or stun. Before I explain wandering medics, I have to introduce you to elemental damage.
Huh? I'm sorry.
Nervous impairment. If the bar is filled, it will stun the victim and enemies can walk past. Corrosion, once filled up, causes heavy physical damage and reduces the victim's defense permanently. This effect can be stacked. Burn damage is basically the same, but with art damage and art resistance. Necrosis periodically deals art damage and drains SP. Wandering medics have weaker healing, but they can remove elemental damage. Sounds really handy, because it is. And it is a required class in certain stages. But there's no need to worry, because the free option is pretty good. Chain medic is pretty niche. Incantation medics are the kind of medics who would solve the trolley problem by killing the other 5 people to save a single person.
This endless burn. You needn't fear.
𝘾𝙍𝙄𝙈𝙀 is not a medic. She's your ex-wife who makes Fischl's long-ass dialogues look tame. She is, how do I put it, a very selfish person. Support. Slower or Diesel Binder can slow the enemies. Hexer, our operator, who can debuff the enemy or just straight up permafreeze them. Artificer is basically Engineer from TF2 migrated into Arknights. Bards can change the in-game music for a moment.
The tide also rises.
Their singing motivates me to edit my videos and buff my operators, while at the same time causing the enemies to bleed from their ears to death. And summoners, well, they are game breaking. I'm talking about Ling. Remember when I mentioned the infamous blue woman? This is her older sister. She can solo most stages in the game. You ask how one operator can do that? Well, she herself is like a caster, but once you deploy her, you get to summon her dragons. There's a reason why they are called summoners after all. And if the dragon is not strong enough, use more dragons. And if that is still not enough, fuse them into a bigger dragon. They block more than defenders. They have more defense and resistance than any other operator. They have way more attack and HP. The thought that a support operator can solo stages is insane. Specialist. Specializing in very specialized combat situations. Pusher and puller are just 2 sides of the same coin. Executors have a faster redeployment time. Each of them has a very different trait, making them different in their own way. Gravel drops to tank. Kafka drops to anemia the enemy. Phantom drops to sing the enemy to death. Waifu silences. Red stuns. Texas Alter is terrible. And Thermax does... Let's not elaborate further. The Stalker branch is made up of gamers and socially awkward people. I know what you think. They just like me for real for real. 𝘾𝙍𝙈𝙀 is a menace to society, because you cannot turn off his friendly fire settings. Merchants are scam artists. They drain your DP. In return, they do what they do best. Perform a little human trickery upon those who are unfortunate to witness it. Trapmasters are fanboy. Trapmasters are absolutely fun to play with. They function almost like a regular sniper, but with the additional talent to plant traps on the map. Playing Trapmaster makes one really feel like a big brain, calculating where the enemy will go and when you are going to trigger multiple traps at once. Doll keepers are operators who have no friends. That is why they have a doll or an imaginary friend at their side. When they are defeated, instead of retreating, they call their imaginary friend to switch places with them for a certain amount of time. In some situations, they are literally immortal and can be the perfect bait for annoying enemies who only attacks the last operator you have deployed. Now that I have explained every single class and its branches, we can proceed to the war crime simulation. We have main theme, the story mode of the game, intermezzi, other less important story, and side story. Honestly, the entirety of Arknights lore is pretty vast, to say the least. To be more specific, putting every relevant event dialogue's word count together, and we have over 2.8 million words. That is more than 5 times the entirety of the Lord of the Rings, with the hobbits included. Which means the story deserves a video of its own. Then we have supplies, the place where you will feel true grind in this game, annihilation, stationary security service, and integrated strategy. To play most of these game modes, you have to spend sanity. After clearing a stage, you gain rewards. The most important one is Originite Prime. You don't want to use them on your gacha banner, trust me on that one. In supply section, you can farm materials for your base, but mostly you farm materials to improve your operators. And just like any other gacha game, there is a place to sell your soul. And in Arknights, you recruit your operators through the human resource department, using either Orundum or Originite Prime. But like I said before, I suggest everyone to only use Orundum, because you are gonna keep your Originite Prime to buy level in IS, and if you can't afford to headhunt, that's okay. There is a recruitment feature where you can hire operators for free, though not every operator is in the roster. It's all you need to beat the game. You still want to live out your gambling addiction. Alright, let's work that out, shall we? Annihilation is your main income of Orundum, unless you are a whale. Get ready to stare at the same map for half an hour, because you are facing a total of 400 enemies. The longer you survive, the fiercer the waves will get. After completing an annihilation, you get Orundum. There is a limit of how much Orundum you can grind in a week, but if you clear the permanent annihilation stages, you can increase the weekly limit. Sounds great? I know. Do I grind annihilation every week? Absolutely. Does it feel repetitive to keep the phone or window open for the time being? Yes, it does. But worry not, because there is an item you can use to instantly rate the stage. Sounds handy? I know. But what if I told you that the item itself is actually an AI program you are feeding, and every time you use it, the AI will become smarter, eventually replacing you as the doctor entirely. Now, let's talk about operator upgrade system. First, there are a lot of rarities in the game. The more stars an operator has, the higher their rarity, but lower does not necessarily mean worse. Some 4-star operator are actually 6-star. To level up your operators, you have to train them by forcing them to consume very brutal and realistic battle records. Yes, even the underaged operators are forced to watch battle records. Yes, Rhodes Island is just a pharmaceutical company. Once your operator reaches max level, you can promote them by giving them the required items. High rate operator naturally needs rare materials. But that is not the only way to improve them. You see, there is a trust bar for everyone. Every time you use them, their trust increases, and with increased trust, their stats improve as well. And if you want the trust to grow faster, you can put them in your base, which leads us to our next topic. Base, beta version. Base is your most important feature at the start, because it is the best way to get passive income in the game. Power plants sustain the base and its facilities with energy. Your base wouldn't function without it. Factories, 3D printers to control C and control V your war crime footage, or other useful materials like gold bars. You wonder how that works? I have no idea. Trading post, pump and dump scheme to exploit the uneducated masses by selling them gold bars that you printed out from your 3D printers. It is just a matter of time before the world economy collapses under the schemes of this evil pharmaceutical company. Workshop, material crafting, office, room 996, reception room. That is where you play Sherlock Holmes with your friends. Training room, That is where you enhance skill further. Control Center, the room for your base moderators. The ones assigned to it get more trust growth to show that you have bias. Dormitory, the place your operators can rest after a long day of work. But as a successful businessman, let me tell you one thing. We don't do that. We are a greedy corporation that exploits our employees to the fullest. Dormitories are just there for shits and giggles and achievement flexing. Base is really the place where you can find the darkest side of Rhode Island. Burnout, human experimentation, sexual harassment at the office, and child labor are all too common. Keep in mind that this is just the beta version. Moving on, once your operators have reached 100 trust, you will have the option to further enhance them with a module. Modules are specialized equipment to improve your operators in a more unique way, or fix them if they are not well received by the community. That's the nice part. Instead of the endless artifact grind in hopes of getting anything useful by praying to RNG Jesus, we have something better in Arknights. It is called Stationary Security Service, SSS for short. You play this game mode to obtain supplement items that can further upgrade your modules. Side events offer these items as well, which makes SSS not a required task for everyone. But if you are like me, a masochist, then that is our best playground. In SSS, you can stack your operators on top of each other. Each class gives a different buff to the current operator on the field. Once you reach 5 buffs, experience the M134 minigun in action, or just purely focus on the damage instead of attack speed. Now you have become Death, the destroyer of worlds. But let's not lose ourselves in the middle of SSS, because I haven't talked about my favorite endgame content yet, integrated strategy. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what it looks like when roguelike game meets tower defense. Integrated strategy is random and fun. It has a lot of events to offer. Normal combat stages, emergency combat stages, a shop like any other rogue game, run by a very interesting looking shopkeeper, safe house, multiple encounters which can lead to different endings, and special encounters.
Looking for a beautiful lady.
I have to admit that I did a little bit of fuck around and find out, and instantly regretted my decision. Last but not least, the boss stage. Integrated strategy also has its own story, although it is not canon. The community likes to refer them as if scenarios. We started with what if our beloved doggo decided to eat fungus and dies of ligma, to a jellyfish fanboy making up his mind to become a better person, but ended up reaching his full potential, erasing the entirety of Originium in all of Terra to be able to propel all Seaborns into space. Playing Arknights for long enough and you will notice that there are a lot of ways to clear a stage. Guards only, sniper only, defender only. There is a niche for every class. Yes, even medic only runs exist. If you think that this is already wild, what if I told you that there are people clearing maps by just limiting themselves to only deploying operators on a single tile, or clear everything with level 1 operators? There is a saying in the Arknights community that when someone says a certain way of playing is impossible, someone is going to prove them wrong. It's just a matter of time. Meanwhile, I consider myself not the brightest doctor. Every time I play a stage, I get very much confused with everything that is happening. But like a wise man once said, the whole secret lies in confusing the enemy so that they cannot fathom our real intent. How can my enemies read my intentions when I myself am confused as fuck? But jokes aside, there is always the guide way. Still not convinced to give it a try? Let me convince you from a different angle. Did you know that Hypogryph is actually a music company? They have at least one song for every 6-star operator. These songs aren't even in game. Every new event brings out at least 3 brand new tracks, but I wouldn't call Hypogryph a music company if it were just for the massive number of songs they have. A wide variety of music genres is Hypogryph's second nature, from jazz to techno and from classic to rock. There is no genre Hypogryph haven't touched yet, and with 100% certainty, there's at least one song for you. Last but not least, here's my totally unbiased rating of the game. Do not trust any 1-star rating on Google. If you have any difficulty playing the game, our server would gladly help you out. We are a very very wholesome community. Wait, before you leave, I have something else to say. A friend of mine told me that when he was outdoors, he got unlockers everywhere, and people looked at him weirdly. He was desperate and didn't know what was wrong, so he told me about that, and I looked at him. I told him to look in the mirror because his hairstyle fucking sucks. He should seriously get a haircut, and here's our today's sponsor.
Huh? Oh, you started recording already? Alright. I'm Golden Glow, but you can call me Susie. This is my hair salon. Here, you can get your perfect haircut, and it means everything to me to make people happy with a cute haircut. It was my dream all along. And without Rhodes Island's help, that dream wouldn't have been. Okay, cut. Hey, don't get too emotional, Susie. I know this means a lot to you. We have to cancel that. Maybe next time. Don't forget to like and subscribe.